What's up, everyone? Welcome back to a Kook's Journal podcast. I'm your host, Holly, aka Hizzle, aka a Kook's Journal. And the intention behind this podcast is to give you guys a fresh perspective on life through surfing. And with me here today, I have a new friend named Travis, and we are going to be talking about we're obviously going to be talking about surfing, but we're just going to be talking about we're going to hear about Travis's story and the deeper roots of surfing. I want to do this series with a lot of different surfers and just kind of share with you guys different perspectives on how people connect with surfing and that feeling like you need to surf. And yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about today. So thanks for tuning in, and without further ado, I want to hear about you, Travis. Do you want to start off and just tell us a little bit about your background and you and all that jazz?
Yeah, okay. I'll give you a little background life of my story and also how I kind of got into surfing. I grew up Minnesota, landlocked, except for now I know, now that I started surfing, I found out there's surfing in the Great Lakes, which you are familiar with. So I think that is like a journey that I need to go make one day.
Yeah, for sure.
And growing up, I was always on boards, all of them of all sorts. And I did get a few times got to go at one of my buddies. He had a wake surf set up. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah, that's big here because there's a lot of inland lakes too. So
yeah, exactly. So that was my first taste of riding a board without, you started out with the rope and then you got to throw it in the boat and then just that pump. Like everybody else wanted to be wakeboarding and all that kind of stuff, but that was the only thing that I wanted to do those few days I was hanging out with my buddy who had the setup. Mm-hmm. There was just something about just riding that and pumping was just something special.
Yeah.
And then we also grew up on a lake, and I didn't even know that skimboards were for the ocean and riding waves.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, but somehow me and my brother ended up with some Victoria skimboards all the way in Minnesota, and we would rake the beach just so that there was that much water, and we would just skimboard back and forth.
Nice. Yeah, that's I did a challenge where I surfed 100 days straight this past summer, and one of the days I went skimboarding on a board size made for a 6-year-old, and it was hilariously bad. That's my only experience skimboarding. It was fun though, but that's really impressive. Skimboarding is hard in my opinion, so that's cool.
Yeah, we made the most ideal situation. We got to rake the beach just so it was a section. And then anytime the snow would melt and there was puddles in the yard, we would just skim back and forth. We were just young kids and we could just do those things.
Yeah. Nice. So you kind
of... those...
No, go ahead.
Those were kind of the origins. I also grew up snowboarding, everything on a board, skateboarding. And then I went traveling around a little bit and ended up here in Northern California. And I'm pretty far north. I'm up in Humboldt County. Okay. And I was originally only going to be here for a couple months. Mm-hmm. And then when it decided this was my full-time situation, I thought, okay, my 30th birthday was coming up. And I normally always go and do something by myself in nature. And I had decided, all right, I have to learn to surf. So somebody brought me out. I didn't go solo, but it was a great way to spend my 30th birthday. It was the beginning of surfing here.
Nice. So when did you move out to California?
Roughly 2.5 years ago. So I'm I'm a little over 32 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So you've been surfing. Yeah, right? Whenever you say your age, I feel after a certain point, you're oh.
Yeah, I just honestly had to be is that how old I am? Yeah, I'm 32.
So you've been surfing for 2.5 years?
Yeah. Roughly, yeah. So now that I'm like looking at actual dates and times, it's a little less. It's like 2.25 years, and most of that time I was just a weekend warrior because I live about 45 minutes to an hour from the ocean, and I work a lot,
Mm-hmm.
so I was just kind of my days off. In the beginning, it was one day off. And I would go down and surf on my Sunday.
Yeah.
And then now, probably within the last, okay, so I'm coming out of like a dark year in my life, right?
Uh-huh.
I had some bad things go on, just like a year dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression.
Okay.
And getting out and surfing was I always felt so good in the water because when you're out there, everything else kind of ceases to exist. You
Mm-hmm.
know, anything that has I feel like has dire consequences. You know, because you've got to be paying attention to the people around you, these waves that are coming in.
Yeah.
All of the senses are being engaged, and there's just a lot of things happening, and it takes me personally out of my mind
Mm-hmm.
and like into my body.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I struggle I struggle with being like in my body a lot myself, and surfing can be really helpful for me with that, because I know sometimes though, like when there's a calm moment and I can feel those thoughts creep back in, and it's almost just so funny when then there's like a big wave coming, you're like, oh shit. And you're like back into it, and
Yeah.
it's like exhilarating but calming at the same time, in the way that, yeah, brings you back into your body. So I, in my own way, relate to what you're saying a lot about that. So very cool.
Yeah. Isn't that funny how it does that piece you just said right there where it's exhilarating but calming at the same time? Like you would think that, this like 9 foot wave that's coming at my face would make my anxiety worse. But then by the time you get out of the water, because you just go into straight survival mode, it's like, okay, um, get out of, come up from a turtle roll and be like, all right, there's another wave coming. And then by the
Yeah.
time you get out, I feel personally just rebirth coming out
Yeah.
of a day like that where
Yeah.
it's like scary.
Yeah. Totally. Even like, I like to open my eyes under the water, and and even like the feeling of you're seeing a big wave coming, and you know you're about to like almost, maybe you'll make it, and you go underneath it, and you can just feel like the sheer force of it trying to pull you with it, and I will like look above me and like see, how in the water, like when a wave goes over you, it kind of like, it's like almost like a sheet like of your bedding, like it like falls down like perfectly kind of, and that
Yeah.
like just seeing that, even though I'm like having the wave trying to pull me back, but I'm like like it's the perfect paradox of like, yeah, calm yet exhilarating. I feel like surfing is a lot of paradoxes, so it's just,
It
I feel so much better after it too. Yeah.
yeah, it's something special. It's something special. And it was yeah, so it was always like a good break for me, these like once a week, and I always felt rejuvenated.
Mm-hmm.
But I for some reason I still hadn't had like the bug yet.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah. 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 Wait. So how long until you had the bug? What's the
yeah, so
timeline of the bug?
all right. Well, okay. There'd be different times where I had varying levels of the bug, but in the last month, I really, really, really tuned in. I met this awesome dude at this surf shop, and just his whole vibe. This dude's an enigma. He's just something else.
What's an enigma?
This
I don't
dude's
know.
whole vibe just got me really, really, really stoked on surfing, and I spent a lot of time. Like I live up in the hills, and so I spent a lot of time alone, and I was primarily like surfing solo
Uh huh.
after like the first 5 6 times somebody brought me out. I spent like most of it solo. So I like met this dude, and he turned me on to some old classic surf movies. And
Oh,
I
okay.
watched some of those, and I was like, all right, Travis, we gotta really make a commitment and drive that hour after work, even though you're like depressed and tired and you just don't feel like you have energy. Like, just go do that.
Nice.
And it'll be better afterwards. Just trust me, you know?
Yeah. So this older gentleman kind of inspired you to be that, like he gave you that unintentionally, he like kind of gave you that push to have that realization of how much you kind of need it. And like I had that feeling too when I was like, I said out loud how old I was to someone, and I'm 23, and I was like,
Okay.
oh my gosh, if I want to get good at surfing, I need to start like yesterday. I need to really get it into gear. So I totally resonate with the feeling you're describing. That's awesome that you started doing that, and how long have you kind of been like pushing yourself to go even when you don't feel up to it?
Yeah, so about a month now has been when that's happening. So it even comes like this week. I had surfed this last week. What day is it? Sunday?
Mm-hmm.
All right, this last week I had surfed on Monday, and by Wednesday I didn't go on Tuesday, and by Wednesday I was starting to get a little depressed, and I had some stuff I needed to do up in the mountain up here,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, God, that's when it was like a couple days go by, and for my mental health, I just need to be in that ocean, you know? So,
yeah.
like, there's something about, so yeah, it's been about 2 years I've been surfing. In the last month, I really got committed, and that's when I really got the bug after meeting this dude and then watching some of those classic surf movies. There's just like something about it, and there's, in life for me, this is just the way it's been going. Is there's a certain balance that I've found of like enacting your will and just surrendering and going with the whole flow of like what's actually supposed to be happening in life. and and surfing to me is so much that, because you're out there and you just have to surrender to what's going on, and you can sort of like use your will and be like, okay, I'm gonna pick this spot to like break through this wave, and I see, okay, there's a little current going there. Like there's enough of your will you can enact, but ultimately you just really have to surrender. And I think that is one of the most powerful things for me in surfing, is that there's just this whole other force that's actually kind of like guiding what's happening, and you just get to be along for the ride, and it's just beautiful to tune in, you know?
Absolutely. It's I don't it's hard for me to try to express what you're saying, because I don't want to like make anyone who doesn't surf feel like, I don't know. I don't want to devalue other activities or ways to spend your time, but for me, from what I've learned with surfing, like I haven't found in life a better metaphor for life. Like surfing is just like, I don't have a notebook out there, so I like constantly am forgetting things, but like so many instances where I'm just like, this is a metaphor. It's just a teacher.
Yeah.
It teaches you if you're open to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're open to it, right? Because you can tell that some people aren't. I don't know. I'm a really, really relaxed surfer, and we had talked a little bit before this. You said there's some people who are out there for the sport, and some people out there for the soul.
Yeah.
And you can so tell the people that are out there for the sport, and you just got to keep the stoke high and the vibes good. What are we out here for? Like, some of these guys, it's like, all right, you guys aren't going pro. What's all this real seriousness about out here, guys? Come on, let's get real.
Oh my gosh, is Hurley here today? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm curious, just on a little side note, like how has your experience been with California, Northern California surfing? Because I've only surfed in Southern California. I just don't know much about Northern California surfing.
Okay, well, let me tell you what. I am from Minnesota, and so this is me totally not being a California person. But
Gotcha.
I personally believe that there's like a north, a central, and a south, you know? So,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
even people, so San Francisco, people say that's Northern California, right? All of
Right.
those beaches around there.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Um, yeah, but I'm like, California's a long state, and
Uh-huh.
I'm like far north. Like I'm a couple hours from Oregon, you know.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So let me tell you, the waters here are dark, cold,
Mm.
powerful, and full of sharks.
Ooh. Like great whites because it's cold, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Ooh.
Uh, so it's like I've had some of the locals here tell me when I was getting into surfing that if you can learn to surf up in Humboldt County, you can pretty much surf anywhere in the world because we'll have 2 to 20 foot days.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's cold. Like the sea today was 50 degrees and the air was 48. I mean,
Okay.
it's not as cold as what you got going on over there, huh?
It's frozen over here.
Yeah.
There's no surf over here right now. But yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's. I feel like your temperature, like, it depends on where you are. Like, if I was in California, I would get cold in that weather. You know, like it just depends. Your body regulates. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's what the surf is like here. And I haven't gone out, and this is the only place I've surfed, by the way.
Okay.
I haven't even driven like an hour north or south and surfed anywhere else. There's just like
Cool.
there's a few spots around here that I've surfed, and that's the only place I've surfed. So like the one day, a long time ago when I was living in Minnesota, I went snowboarding in Colorado, and I got back to Minnesota, and I was like, God, I don't know if I can snowboard anymore. It's just like, too good. I'm a little bit worried that I'm gonna feel that way about leaving Northern California, these cold waters, to like go surfing in just board shorts. I'm gonna be like, God, I just don't know if I should even do it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going
Okay.
to.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you're learning your break. You're learning your spot, and you're getting comfortable with it. Which,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's this cool spot. These are the I'm not even blowing up a spot because if you search Humboldt County, these are like the two most known spots.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But there's a nice point break called Camel Rock, and it's got a couple sandbars right behind it. And then just down the ocean, not far, like you can just look at both of them, is Moonstone Beach, which is a beach break. So generally, like those are the spots that I go to, and
Gotcha.
yeah, really tuning in, really learning.
Gotcha.
um so going back to the need, after I really got the bug, it and I started actually going out multiple times per week and just like really tuning into like going back to the fundamentals and paddling, and just like even if there's a day where it's really terrible, I just get out and paddle my little heart out.
Yeah.
And since that time that I really committed to it, I have had just overall way better energy. I'm
Mm.
not going to lie, my sleep hasn't gotten better because I'm just like so stoked on what happened that day or what's going to happen the next day.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I've been breaking out of like some habits and some formations of my like the limitations of my mind of like what I do, because normally this last year it was like real depressed and not a lot of energy. So I'd get home from work and have to nap every day. But now, if I
Mm.
get home from work and I just like pack my stuff and go to the ocean, I come back later having more energy than I ever thought I could imagine.
Totally. Yeah. You've. I felt a little bit that way when I first started the 100 Days of Summer challenge because the first 2 weeks were really hard, like because my ribs were getting bruised and stuff just from my body getting adjusted. And I was so tired, But yeah, your body like will adapt, and if you set a standard for it, like it will follow. If you're like, I'm not, this is the standard, body. And we're not going back, so you better hop on board. That's cool. Yeah. So you surf like multiple times a week now for like the past month or so.
Yeah, exactly. I amped it up. And then even, on the days where I actually have fully off, I started just bringing multiple wetsuits and being like, okay, I'm going to back up just a little bit.
Yeah.
When I was a weekend warrior, it was like 2 hours was maybe max, and you're already gassed out. And then I would be sore for like 4 or 5 days afterwards. Yeah. And then now, yeah. And then now really committing, like you said, if you're like, hey, body, this is what's going to be happening now most days of the week, it starts to adjust. So yeah, I bring 2 wetsuits into town, and tomorrow I have off tomorrow, and I'll be going. It's low tide at this good spot, so I'll be going in the morning, and then I'm meeting up with a buddy. I'm going to take a little break, drink some more coffee, eat some food, and then I'm going out with a buddy in the afternoon for a few hours. So yeah, even let's see, on Valentine's Day, I spent probably 4.5 hours in the water, just like straight. So
sweet.
I'm conditioning.
I'm full on living vicariously through you right now because, like I said, there is no surf in the Great Lakes right now because it's been frozen, and yeah, I miss surfing so much. That's a hard thing, like, about adjusting here, because it is. I feel like people want to say like that. Oh no, like in the winter it's as consistent as like the ocean, and like in the summer it's like 3 to 4 days a week, and I'm not. It is not. It is not. They are not telling the truth. I don't know. It's different. Like, and it's less buoyant here. There's so many differences, and yeah, it is not. It's not like the ocean at all. But I miss just that ability to like go. It's so much more selective to come by here, and it does a whole different thing for your stoke levels. But I'm totally living vicariously through you right now. So I am. But when you said when you said it was 2 to 20, you mean like in a day it could be anywhere from 2 to 20, or you mean like overall? It could be
overall.
Okay.
Overall, yeah. In the summer, you'll have some like a couple, some 1 to 2 foot days, but then you can have some like 15 to 20 foot days.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So not in the same day.
What kind of board do you ride?
This is a super kind of kooky move. But I started and learned on 6'6", Channel Islands. Yeah, I know. But hear me out. It's got 47.6 liters.
Okay, so 2 things. I learned on a 6'8", so I'm so with you. And
yes.
Second thing, I have no idea what liters means. Like, I need to learn what that means. I don't know what 47... Does that mean it's just, like, has a huge volume? Or...
It's got a lot of volume, exactly.
Okay. Cool. So you learned on a 6'6". Okay, tell me about that. Tell me your experience of learning on a 6'6".
Yeah, so being a weekend warrior on that 6'6", it took me a bit to there'd be so many times where I would just be out there for 3 hours and catch 1 to 2 waves, right? Just because I just didn't have the strength for it / the positioning. But yeah, it's got a lot of volume. So I was people had told me, hey, you should really start with a longboard. But there was just something about, I was driving a Kia Soul at the time, and there was just something about being able to throw that board inside my car that I just was like, yep, I'm just going to ride boards that fit inside my car, and I'm just going to make it work. Like, I knew from the get-go, because I did fall in love with surfing right away. I knew from the get-go that it was something that no matter what, I was like, okay, I will be good enough to actually ride this board one day, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. So
So
do you have a relationship with your board? Sorry to interrupt.
yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, I really, really, really love this board. I got it from my buddy Mark, who surfed these waters for probably, I think, 10 to 12 years, and then he moved to the Philippines. So he sold me this board before he went, and he was the one that took me out probably like the first 7 times or
Nice.
so, you know?
Yeah.
So this board has seen these waters, and he even told me, he's like, dude, it's going to be hard right away, but this is the perfect board for these waters and a lot of the conditions here.
Nice.
So I just went with them. But you know, there's something about when you're learning with a shorter board like that, when your skills aren't up to par, that even like in the parking lot, I know that everybody's like, okay, they think I'm a better surfer than I actually am. You know, even when I get onto the waters, everybody thinks I'm a better surfer than I am. Did you feel that same way growing up?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a yeah. I felt like this pressure because they would see me going out with this board, and I'm thinking to myself like, I'm not gonna provide. Like, I am not providing what you think I am putting down.
Exactly.
I'm a little bit of a disappointment in this situation. Yeah.
It's so funny. But you know, now I'm at the point where I feel this board is good for me, and I actually just picked up. I was over at one of my other buddies' house. So the guy that sold me that board, that Al Merrick, was his name is Mark, and there's a board at my other buddy's house that is this town and country made in Hawaii 7.6 board that was just beat up. And it's Mark's, who's in the Philippines. So I messaged him. I was like, yo, dude, I'd love to have another one of your boards in my quiver. Can I just fix this thing up and send you a little bit of money and like make this deal happen? And he was all about it. So I love that I got this same guy's boards that had put all this energy and time into in these waters, that the breaks that I'm going to. So that's just really special to me, and I just love them both. I'm getting that one repaired right now.
Nice. That's awesome. I love hearing about people's like special connections to their boards because I feel like that's so essential. It's like the other half of you in there, you know, or out there, I should say. And I don't know. I got pretty sentimental with my first board. I was sleeping with it. I was driving around with it. It was like a treasure. It's a beautiful board. It's a beautiful board. It's a like a seafoam kind of blue Lane Beachley board. Do you know who Lane Beachley is?
I don't. I'm like never. Yeah, I don't know a lot of the things. You know?
Yeah. I'm not big into like I don't know a lot of names either. I just know her name because she was like a woman competitive surfer who won like 7 or 8, I can't remember which, 7 or 8 world titles, and she's from Australia. She's like epic, and she designed her own
nice
brand or whatever, and so I'd big shoes to fill. So it was so fun. So I just love to hear about people's special board stories. So yeah.
Yeah, huge fan. And then I also, this was another kook move. Let me tell you, it was maybe about a year after I started surfing. And, you know, like I went out mainly by myself, and I was feeling pretty confident riding that board, even though I was like not catching enough waves, you know. But I thought the key to getting outside was going to be me being able to get a smaller board to be able to duck dive, because I was like, this turtle roll business is hard, you know.
Yeah.
So, so I ended up getting a 6'3" Paisel Ghost, which I brought out one time, and I was like, all right, I'm not ready for this board yet. Those are my 3 boards in my quiver. And this summer, now that I'm really dedicated, this summer I'll be able to ride that Ghost. I'm feeling confident.
Nice. I'm stoked for you. So when do you, I mean, roughly, like, when would you see yourself? Like, I was gonna say Great Lakes, but like, where's somewhere else you would like to surf? But I mean, it could be the Great Lakes, but like, where do you have anywhere that you would like to surf? Like elsewhere?
Yeah, this is a good question. I have a friend I won't be able to take off, which is like breaks my heart. But I have one of my best friends is going to be staying in Santa Teresa, Costa Rica for the next month. And I hear good things about that area. Honestly, I want to surf all over the place. Yeah, I haven't really got super nerdy into like really checking spots all over the world. This is close to me, and this is what works. How about you? You've been to all over, huh?
Not really. I lived on Maui for 3 years, and that's where I learned to surf. So
Okay.
that's like, I mean, besides, I like surfed once when I was like 16 in Florida, and I mean, I don't even know what that was. I don't know if I mean, I guess I've kind of surfed there, but I guess, I forgot. I got to surf in Colorado this winter. I went river surfing.
Okay, where at?
Frickin' Denver.
Okay.
It was pretty epic because it was like low flow season because it's snow and there wasn't a lot of snow melt, but there's this wave in Denver that is uh, like a longboarding wave, and it's a really cool surf community there, and they're in like the spring and summer because I joined some Facebook groups trying to make it happen because I wanted to go surfing because I was going to Colorado anyway, and I was like, how am I going to make this happen? I don't even know if this is possible. And the community there is really sweet, and the waves that they ride are really cool. And some of the places actually they've input like machine, it like will rise up and make a wave, like pump it
Whoa.
up. It's so cool. Yeah, it's really cool. And yeah, I mean, so Colorado, Great Lakes, Maui. I've surfed Southern California, but I would like to surf in. Um, well, I'm such a softie. I would just love to go back to Maui and go surfing because I have emotional connections to that place. But
Yeah.
uh, this is a good question, isn't it? You said it was a good question. It's a good question.
It is.
I mean, man, I feel like I want to surf in like Iceland or like another Arctic place. That would be
Yeah,
fun.
I like the novelty of these. Like, yeah, I agree. I was okay. Yeah, I actually, now that you say that, I was looking up. Okay, here's some spots, that are really nice, and then I thought, okay, there's I forget the name of it, but there's this awesome documentary. These kids, it was in the Arctic Circle somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Spent, they built a little hut off the side of a rock from driftwood and whatever they found on the beach, and they lived in there and surfed every day and picked up garbage every day. And they
Wow.
had some dude come in from the garbage company and haul out 3 tons of garbage. So these dudes spent the whole winter just surfing in somewhere like you're talking about, like Iceland or somewhere
Wow.
gnarly like that.
Wow. That's so
I'll
cool.
I'll figure out the name of it and I'll send it your way because it's a must watch.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to watch that, man. I feel like, yeah, Iceland or like, I really want to surf on the East Coast. Like New Jersey, New York, the Carolinas. Like, there are some freaking world class waves out there I've been seeing on the social medias.
No. Yeah, nice, and especially listen to the Kookcast. It just like paints this picture of all these like characters in these places, and you feel like you just want to be there too.
Oh, yeah, so you listen to the Coopcast a lot and you've been like binging it, right?
Yeah, I am on. I just listened. I listened to like 20 episodes right off the get, and then I was like, all right, I need to go from the beginning. So I started at episode 1, and today on the way back up, driving up from the ocean, I'm like halfway through episode 100. Yeah, yeah. I've been binging it hard, and this is that part of where okay, so going back to the surfing and my need in my life,
Yeah.
it is the last year I hadn't been stoked on anything, and it's now tuning in this hard and being so immersed and diving into the podcast, diving into videos, all of and surfing so much more. It's really given me a reason to wake up and just be excited and get engaged in something every day. It like really is filling me with purpose again, and it feels good to be alive.
That's so awesome. I'm so happy for you. I think that's really important. Like that's a really crucial part of surfing is immersing yourself in as much of it as you can, because we can't spend 24 hours a day in the water, I suppose. So, yeah, just like finding little ways in your day, like yeah, the podcast is super helpful for me, like being landlocked. Woo woo woo.
Yeah.
Or like even just making things about surfing. Like if I'm going to work out, I'm like making it for surfing. You know, I'm doing workouts for surfing. I'm like doing pop ups in the gym. I'm trying to bring my surfboard to the weight room. You know what I mean? Like I am revolving my life. Yeah, and I guess too, like social media has actually been really cool for me with surfing, because just the surfing community on there and getting to see different waves and getting to talk to different people, like I never would have even, I don't know if I would have met you in my life if like surfing wasn't involved. So yeah, it's just immersing yourself in as much of surf as you can, even if you're not able to surf at that time. Like it is good for the soul. Like it's gonna get you through and just, yeah, add more stoke to your life. So I'm happy that you're doing that. You're on episode 100 or whatever.
Yeah, you nailed it right there. Doing anything outside of being in the water just keeps you connected and really keeps that. You know, the word stoke I think is so funny too, because there's that fire that's burning, and you know when you add wood to it, you're like stoking the fire. And I think it's so funny that surfers, it's just such a surfing term in general. A lot of people in just extreme sports use it, but yeah, it's great to like keep adding that to and keep that stoke alive.
Yes. Wait, did you use the fire reference because you listened to my podcast, or was that your own reference?
That's just like I've spent winters having wood stoves, and like that has been always something that's been like one of my best friends, is just like having a fire to tend to. But that's where the word stoke comes from, right?
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Is it not?
I mean, I don't know. I asked you that question because in my podcast that I released recently, I was like I was using a fire as a metaphor, but I was using it differently. So I was wondering if that's why you were referencing it, or if it was a different. But that's cool. I didn't know that it was like the stoke the fire. That's cool.
Yeah. Hey, I listened to your first episode, and let me tell you what, there was something about going and charging on days and like overcoming some of your own fears and like then coming home and being in your real life and having those hard conversations that you don't want to have and been like, yeah, I charged those waves today. I can handle this conversation. So that day after listening to that podcast, I was like, okay, I made that phone call that I didn't want to have. And I was like, yeah, I can do this. I just like looked some 9-foot waves in the face last week and I survived. I can do this. So thank you for that, Jem.
Dude, surfing, what is, like, I need research to go down about how healing surfing is. Like, that is so, because I'm just the messenger. Like, but it's true. Like, the seeing a 9-foot face and then going out and being like, I can do this. Like, holy cow, that is like, I just like therapy. That's like a mental benefit. It's crazy how transformative surfing can be for your mind and like the smallest things and the biggest things. Like even like making those like, because I speed, but like I'm a little skittish of a driver. But even like making the turn, I'm like, oh, I can do this. Like I understand how pacing works because of surfing. I'll make this.
Yeah.
But it just gives you like a confidence in yourself and in life, but like such a humble confidence because you're constantly getting, well, I'm constantly getting wrecked. So
Same.
so yeah, and what you were saying earlier about how like that feeling of like making it out alive, like on those days where it is scary and you are scared for your life, the whole rest of your day, you're just, for me personally, I'm thinking like, I survived and like I'm still surviving. I'm out here. Like we made it. I could have died. Something bad could have happened to me, but like it just puts things into perspective.
So yeah, those days, there's especially after listening to the Kookcast, there's like a line where you should know your limits. But the days that I go just beyond my limits, and where you, like you just said there, where like I could have died today, those days and tuning into all of that, coming out of the water, is when I feel most alive. And maybe that's like not a healthy thing, but it's how it is,
Yeah. Well, would you call yourself an adrenaline person, junkie, whatever they say?
Generally speaking, I wouldn't really say so. Like, I live a cool, calm, collected life, I listen to pretty chill music. I love yoga. Oh yeah, and this ties into the whole surfing business. I'm a yogi by nature, and the bhakti path. So, are you familiar with the bhakti path of yoga?
No, I'm not.
Okay. I'll just lay it on super quick. Bhakti means devotion. So like the devotional path. Some of the like my favorite practices are chanting, hanging out with the mallows, and being able to tune into that force that's bigger than yourself is a whole part of the bhakti path, is that devotional path. So it just fits so well into like going and having reverence for the ocean and trying to just ride with it. It's oh yeah, so yeah, no, I'm not really an adrenaline junkie, I wouldn't really say, but there's just something about towing that line of it being dangerous just makes me feel alive. Yeah, I don't know. How about you? Are you adrenaline junkie? Are you out jumping out of planes?
I mean, I've done some pretty stupid things. Like, and I feel like the only way I can explain that is by liking adrenaline.
Yeah. Having that confidence.
But I don't feel like I was always an adrenaline junkie. I feel like I was a very bashful child. Like, I was a very, I don't know. I wasn't like that. I feel like I don't really understand what shifted, but I feel like at I don't know, like 5 years ago or so, I just became a little bit adrenaline-y. I've always been a little bit impulsive, which I feel like is an aspect of adrenaline seeking. But I don't know. I guess I am because I like the thrill. But there are some times where I'm just like, oh man, I'm so scared. I hate this.
One of the scariest parts for me is on those bigger days of like, okay, I'm out, and it's safe out here, but getting back into the ocean or like getting back into the beach is some of the scariest. Like when you decide finally, like, okay, I'm gonna go in, and there's rocks and there's all of the impact zone on the inside, and that's probably one of the times where I'm most afraid is going back in sometimes. I don't know. Do you feel that way, or is that a me thing?
No, totally. I mean, are there strong rips around you?
Yeah, yeah. Depending. Okay, so I'm like super also learning the ocean from being this like landlocked Midwestern boy. You
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
But yes, there can be, especially depending on the tide. And obviously, yeah, I sound like such a kook right now, but like, yeah, sometimes by rocks, there's just like weird things going on, and you're like paddling, and it's like, okay, I'm not going anywhere. In fact, I'm maybe actually getting pulled back out, and this is okay. I've heard about like going parallel, so
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just because on Maui, like, it was hard. And I don't know if I would necessarily call. I sound like a kook too. I don't know if I would call it a rip, but if it was a rip, it was a very short rip. But just that suction of trying to get in at the right place because it's such a fine area of space where you can get in, and yeah, navigating that there I've had there's actually this is a testimony to how much I was fond of my board. It's actually one time when I was trying to go in, and there's this spot on Maui called Breakwall, and it's like a very very well known spot. It's like where all of the surf lessons are, and it's my favorite spot because it's just like chill and beginner and sweet and sentimental. And but there's this like rock wall that blocks like the marina from the waves and stuff. And there was one time where it was really I was pushing my limits as well. And the waves just like I was trying to come in and I got turned to the wall, and it was like not enough space for me to keep paddling that way, but it was too big for me to paddle out, and I didn't really back out, and I didn't really know what to do, so I just I screamed to my board. I was like, "Save yourself!" And I like, because it pushed us onto the rocks, and I like threw my board so it wouldn't get hit on the rocks, and like totally rolled all over the rocks. And I was like, my board didn't get scratched up, and neither did I. Funny enough, it was a successful mission, but that's a little story of like how much I love my board and how hard it can be to get in sometimes.
It's wild. Okay, have you named your board, or did you not go that far?
I've like never named anything. I don't know. I've never been like people are like, what did you name your car? I'm like, I don't know, car. But I have a like a connection. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never named. I don't know.
Something they don't need names. Yeah, that's totally fine. So, okay, I have got a sort of question for you, because when I really fell in love with surfing, one of my next biggest fears was, oh God, what if for some reason like I find a woman that I'm gonna marry and I become landlocked, in a state that doesn't have the Great Lakes, because
Yeah.
for example I really love Colorado, and then I fell in love with surfing. I'm like, I'm just gonna be with the ocean now. I don't know if there's a choice. So how did you decide? Okay, I'm gonna go back.
Mm.
Because where are you at? You're in Michigan.
Yeah, I'm in northern Michigan, and that's where I'm from.
Oh, the you're up in the Upper
No,
Peninsula.
no, no, I should say, I'm sorry. Pardon me. I should say northern lower Michigan. The northern part of
Okay, okay.
lower Michigan. I am not a Youper. I do not. You have to have like a credential to be a Youper. um, but I guess for me, because people are like very confused when I say that I moved back from Maui to Michigan. Um, but for me, I'm a very like deep, deep feeling, deep thinking person, and as awesome as Maui was, and like as awesome as the waves were there, I just really missed my family, and like I was just so far away. And I came back and visited this past summer before I just recently had moved back this past October, and I just thought Great Lake surfers were so cool because I didn't know about Great Lake surfing either until I moved to Maui. And then I met someone who was a Great Lake surfer, and I was like, it's like, you're telling me there's surfing back where I live? And I don't know, it's like a whole different category of surfing. And I did get a couple opportunities to surf before I moved back here. And there's no place like surfing of where you're from, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, there's no feeling like it. It's just like special, and I'm willing to accept the trade-offs, because I can always travel somewhere and like go if I really have an itch, I could go somewhere, but just home. I don't know. I definitely, when I moved to Maui, I was like trying to run away from home, and but now I'm back. I've come full circle. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I really love that, you have that connection of there's no better place to surf than like where you're from. And luckily, I'm from Minnesota, and there is surfing up in Lake Superior, like up in Duluth. So if I ever move back to Minnesota, I'm definitely going to Duluth. I was originally living like 3-ish hours away from Duluth. But yeah, now if I ever go back, because now this is like the whole thing. I need the surfing to be happening in my life. So
Yeah.
at least we're lucky enough to go back home and still have that.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, do you know who Ben Gravy is?
Is that the novelty surfer in all 50 states, dude?
Yeah. He's like
Okay, yep.
sweet. He's sweet. But I was just brought him up because he proved to everyone that you could surf in all 50 states. But obviously, conditions-wise, you living in California versus you living in Duluth is going to be like a different story. But I don't know. I just, I mean, if I could surf every day, I would. Like, that would be sweet if that was the reality here. But I don't know, man. I'm okay with it for now. But I mean, I'm like dying a little because because I miss it. But it'll come. It'll come. So I don't know.
Yeah, and it seems like you're doing a really good job of connecting with surfing in a whole bunch of other ways, because yeah, being on that wave is only like a small portion of it, although that feels divine.
Yes. I do. Sometimes I will like think back to Maui, and just like the rides in general were a little bit like longer, like more consistently, I feel like. And I just love that feeling, and like miss that feeling of it being like, oh, I'm still on the wave. Okay, we're still here. Oh my gosh, I'm still on it. But I do get those experiences here. It's just a little bit more few and far between. So it increases the stoke.
100%. 100%. And there's aspects of, I think that this is pretty cold waters, even though I come from like a really cold state, but just going to surf when it's, 40, 50 degrees and some 50-degree water, there's this like sort of, I don't know if the word is chip on your shoulder, where you're like, yeah, I go into those cold waters, but you really can be like, yeah, I go into those cold waters, And I think that's so powerful. Just being able to willing to do that gives you this like inner strength that most people won't just get to experience, like that kind of, I love this so much, I'm willing to put myself through this and love it the whole time.
It's totally, that makes it worth the trade-off, because honestly, this winter for me, I was like, my surfing ability adjusting to this whole thing was struggling. Like and also timing wise, because it's so, the times where it's perfectly going off is more finite here. So just life wise, like work and obligations, I'm in school, so commitments and like lining everything up, lining perfectly. I probably had like two like just immaculate perfect sessions this whole winter. A lot of people scored this winter, but like just just even getting out there, I feel like, because also, I don't know, maybe you feel this way, but I kind of feel like there's a time frame of proving yourself to the water. I don't know. Like, I feel like you have to prove yourself, and I feel like that's what this winter was. Even if it was complete, just I don't even know what I'm riding. Like it's not a green wave, we will say, but I just feel like, yeah, proving yourself and getting out there, you're kind of putting it out there. You know what I mean?
I really love that you have to like gain the water's respect in order to be blessed. It's super funny. I was this woman down at the beach today I was telling this dude where to paddle in, where like the easiest access to paddle in to try and get outside. It was kind of a big day for this beach break, but I'm like trying to tell him, and this woman was right. They were together, and she was kind of making fun of me, and she's like, "Hey man, the waves come from you, not to you." But there was something that was really beautiful about that, It's like, okay, you prove yourself to the water.
Yeah, totally. And I've been freaking rejected. I don't know about you, but there are times when, I don't know, my attitude just, like my mindset, I should say, it wasn't there. It wasn't where it needed to be, and I will get sent back. I will. And so that's kind of affirmed to like my belief that it's so important to have like the right mindset when you're getting there. Like you were saying earlier, like surrendering and letting go of your expectations and how, all the mind things that we like carry with us in life in general, I guess, and just, yeah, taking it for what it is and like loving it is, yeah,
You gotta surrender.
Yeah, you gotta surrender. Yeah, sometimes I struggle with surrendering, um, but I love when it happens and it's all flowing and it's all working.
Yeah, because then there's times when you're blessed. Like for example, um, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Awful day. The water was so choppy and it was just rough. It was windy. Nobody else was out surfing. And I was like, all right. I was super stoked up on Kookers, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go get paddling in. I need to go get practice. And I'm paddling out there, and out of nowhere, like, this is what it felt like. Granted, I know the ocean is pretty random and like waves pop up all the time, but this wave just formed up right behind me, and I started paddling in, and I was like, "Oh, I am in the position. I'm in the," and then all of a sudden I was riding this wave, and I got off of it, and I was like, "This should not have happened," like this wave should not have lined up like it did. I shouldn't have been able to ride it. I shouldn't have been able to catch it, but I caught it, and it felt like it was one of those times that the ocean was really blessing me. Like, hey, buddy, you came out, you went for it. We'll give you one. We'll give you one that, just like.
That's so awesome. I totally know what you mean, and that's like the best feeling ever when the ocean rewards you, The water rewards you. That's awesome.
Too good. Too good.